Oh, hey there, it's Wes, and today it's time to talk about the Sony 85 1.4 G Master. My relationship with this lens is a little bit complicated. We'll talk about that a little later, but let's get into it. First, we're going to show you the box. Comes in your regular orange and black G Master box. Inside the box, not a lot of surprises here. We have warranty and manuals, a bunch of plastic, and the pouch that comes with pretty much all of Sony's fancy lenses. And a strap. Should you so choose, you could attach this to your belt and go for a walk in the park. Let's move on to the lens itself, and section number 1, build quality. This lens is well made. It feels substantial in the hand. Not all of it feels like metal. I think some of it's a little bit plasticky, but it's very high quality polycarbonate plastics. Detachable locking lens hood, rubberized on the end, felt on the inside, lens cap, wide aperture, don't blow on your lens. On the body itself, we have an aperture ring, which I don't like. Some people love, especially videographers. It is declickable, smooth, or a very satisfying click. And on the side there is a multifunction button that you can assign to whatever you want. I don't use it, I already have enough buttons on the camera to make me happy. We turn our eyes to the back. We have a weather sealing O-ring, very nice. Overall, very nice build quality. 10 out of 10. Number 2, image quality. Still looking at good stuff here. This lens is very sharp across the entire frame, from center to edge to edge. It's very consistent. It also seems to have very good copy-to-copy uniformity. This is actually my 4th copy of this lens. My first one had a lot of issues mechanically, electrically, and I sent it back. They tried to fix it, sent it back again, they tried to fix it. They sent me a couple loaners in that time. I've taken hundreds, possibly thousands of shots on loaner lenses, and this is my new 85 1.4, which I've taken many shots on as well. This lens and its predecessors have been to dozens of weddings with me, so I have a lot of experience with this. But one thing I want to tell you, of all 4 copies of this lens that I've had, they have all behaved pretty much identically. They all sound the same, they all produce the same results optically. Seems very consistent. It is somewhat lacking in contrast, especially if you get any sort of lens flaring going on, and even without that, it's not nearly as contrasty as a lot of lenses that I have. As far as chromatic aberration goes, that is very well controlled for a wide aperture lens. Even at 1.4 you see very little color fringing. It's so small that it's very easy to correct in post. And flaring itself, even if you take this lens cap off, it does manage flaring quite well. Not the very best. Not perfect, but quite good, but the flares themselves I quite enjoy, which I'll talk about in the next section. But overall image quality, 8 out of 10. Image character. This is the section that's pretty much subjective. It's just what I think about how the images look. So if it can be measured and it's objective, it's image quality. Image character is about how I think it comes out. Number 1, as far as character goes, this is my favorite lens that I own. All rounded, I love the way that this lens renders. I love the way that it looks, the feels of the images. And so what does that mean? I love the bokeh, has nice round bokeh balls. It only breaks down at the edges with some cat's eyeing, not as much as a lot of wide aperture lenses do. The autofocus transitions I find is very nice, goes from very sharp to very smooth. And around the edges it doesn't get nervous or swirly. Some people like the swirl effect, I don't. This one has a very stable looking image. And then talking about the lens flares, when you get a flare on this lens, unlike some lenses that come out a little bit too clinical, this one gives a nice warmth, it gives a nice even spread to the lens flare. It doesn't come out too mechanical as you might expect from a modern lens. So yeah, overall I'm going to give this 9.5 out of 10, image character. Autofocus. I don't want him to hear this. This is where this lens falls down. For some reason, this modern G Master lens contains older autofocus tech than a lot of the newer G Master lenses. just like the previous one that I reviewed, the 16-35 GM, that has a direct drive SSM motor. This one, not so much. It does autofocus, so that's nice, but compared to every other lens in Sony's modern E-mount lineup, it does not stack up at all. And for a lens that costs $1,800 American plus tax, I don't really find that to be terribly acceptable. It struggles additionally in backlit situations. If you have light coming in through a window and you're shooting someone with this lens, you're not going to get very consistent results. Sometimes it's just going to hunt the entire time. And this is on a Sony A9 that has very strong autofocus with pretty much every other lens that you put on this thing. Additionally, you might have heard people talk about the loud focus motor on this. It's not ridiculously loud, but you can definitely hear it. You wouldn't want to be shooting video with this on the camera and on-camera audio. And it doesn't bother me too much, but I have had people actually go out of their way to tell me that the sound my lens is making is annoying them, which is unusual. Now, people have told me, oh, you must have a bad copy. I've had 4 copies of this lens. I've shot thousands of pictures on these lenses, and they all sound the same, and it doesn't really get quieter. Again, it's not loud. If you're on the other side of the room, you will barely notice, but if you're standing right next to it, or you're shooting it, you will hear this autofocusing constantly. It makes little ticks and buzzes and whirs. It's not much, but yeah, it does that. Now, I've been down on it, but just one caveat. When you do lock focus with this thing, when the camera says that it's got focus, it's got focus. It doesn't like back focus or front focus or anything like that in most situations. As I said, this is a very sharp lens. You wouldn't know it's a sharp lens if it couldn't autofocus well. It does autofocus well. It's just slow and it's not great at multiple conditions. So, 5 out of 10. It autofocuses very accurately. It's just not up to par. Value. This is another place that you've probably heard a lot of Sony's high-end lenses are expensive. This is one of them. So if we look at our list of comparable prices here, we got the Sony 1.8 which is a phenomenal 85mm lens. It's only $600. This one, $1,800. It's more than twice as much money. Now, I think Sony almost accidentally made a phenomenal, cheap 1.8 85mm lens. That thing punches way above its weight class. So they kind of accidentally made a bad comparison to this. You got the Sigma available for $11.99. Canon, the new 1.4, $1,600, pretty close in price. The Canon 1.2, $1,900, which actually focuses slower than this, is much softer. Has a very lovely character though. The Nikon 85, older lens, $1,600, still pretty close. Doesn't really stack up to this one. The new Nikon 105, fairly close to this lens, $2,200, phenomenal lens, costs way more than that. And then you can get the Samyang 85 1.4 for about $600 as well. So, it's not astronomical, it's a little bit high, but it's still a fantastic lens, so if it had a modern autofocusing system, I might give it a 7 or an 8 for value, but being where it is, it's a 6. I don't mind, I still love this lens, it was worth it to me, but 6 out of 10 for value. It's not an amazing bang for your buck. So, where does that leave us overall? A total of 38.5 out of 50. What does that mean? I don't know, until I've reviewed about 50 more lenses. Statistically speaking, those numbers won't really mean all that much. But even though I said some negative things about this lens, it is still one of my favorite lenses that I've ever used. Not the favorite. Spoilers. I'm not going to talk about that just yet. But I do not regret buying this lens. I do wish that Sony had made it with more modern components. And if a Mark II comes out for this, and it doesn't cost $3,000, I am sorry to say that I will probably buy it in an instant. You might call me stupid, but I just love the pictures that come out of this lens. So, if you have any comments on this lens, if you've used this lens and you have anything to say about it, let me know down in the comments. I've got links in the description where you can buy this lens if you so choose. Or, if you're feeling a little more frugal and want some bang for your buck, 85 1.8 really can't be beat at that price point. Links in the description for that as well. Also, if you have any suggestions or things that you want me to review in the future, let me know in the comments. So, until next time, like and subscribe, or don't, whatever. Or do, it's fine, I don't care, I care. Go take some photos! Mm-hmm.